Objection. Counsel is leading the witness. The words cut through the courtroom like a scalpel, sharp, precise, and full of quiet authority. All heads turned, not toward the sleek, grinning white attorney in the navy suit who had dominated the room since the morning, but toward the speaker, a young black woman in her 20s, standing tall, composed, and unapologetically confident. Her identical twin sat beside her at the defense table, eyes narrowed, taking notes like a hawk scanning for movement. Judge Meadows, a seasoned woman in her 60s, blinked. She hadn't expected that voice to come from the defense. She cleared her throat. Sustained. From the prosecution table, Bradley Voss gave a theatrical shrug and stepped back. "Just trying to get some clarity, Your Honor," he said, voice syrupy with false charm. Zora Carter didn't flinch. Her twin, Nova, smirked faintly and leaned toward her. "He's panicking. Already," she whispered. Zora didn't respond. Her focus was locked on the witness, a corporate executive caught in a storm of fraud allegations. This wasn't just another case. This was personal. Voss strutted back to his seat, his eyes flicking toward the twins. His jaw tightened. Two black girls, barely old enough to drink, sitting at the defense table like they owned the courtroom. He had laughed when he first saw them that morning. "They representing themselves?" he had joked to the bailiff. "Cute. Let's give them a real education today." But no one was laughing now. The courtroom was packed. Local reporters in the back row. Friends of the accused, family members. Everyone was whispering. Who were these women? Why did they look so calm? Because they had seen worse. Outside, the Los Angeles sun scorched the pavement. Inside, the air felt heavy with challenge. Every motion, every objection, every question was a battle for control. And Voss, a man used to dominating depositions and dictating deals, was suddenly on defense. Nova rose from her seat now, smoothly, as if she'd done it 1,000 times. "Your Honor," she said, "we'd like to move to strike the last portion of the witness's answer. It speculates on our client's intent without foundation." Meadows adjusted her glasses. "Agreed." Stricken from the record. Another small victory. Not flashy, but vital. Voss tapped his pen nervously against the table. Nova sat. Zora gave her a quick nod. They had a rhythm, spoken and unspoken. Years of twin telepathy, sharpened into a tactical edge. They didn't need a big firm's backing. They didn't need prestige, they had the law. They had each other. And they had a secret no one in the room knew yet. They weren't just defending a client. They were dismantling an entire system that had underestimated them their whole lives. One courtroom at a time. 3 months earlier, Zora was stocking books at a used legal bookstore near Crenshaw when her phone buzzed, 3 times in rapid succession. That was the signal. Twin emergency. She didn't hesitate. She dropped the textbook she was sorting and slipped out the back door. By the time she reached their apartment 2 blocks away, Nova was already pacing on the tiny balcony, barefoot, phone in hand, face stormy. "Please tell me it's not another cousin with a traffic ticket," Zora said, breathless. Nova looked up, eyes blazing. "It's worse, it's Aunt Tasha." "They're trying to charge her with felony embezzlement." Zora blinked. "That's ridiculous. She's a bookkeeper at a church." "Exactly, but the pastor's nephew, he's the one who made the mess. Now they're pinning it on her." For a moment, neither of them said anything. The sounds of LA buzzed in the background. Distant traffic, a dog barking, someone playing old-school R&B from a passing car. Then Zora sighed. "We'll defend her." Nova smiled, relieved. "I already started drafting the pretrial motion." That's how it always was with them. Nova moved fast, Zora moved deep. Nova was the strategist, Zora the tactician. 2 sides of the same relentless coin. They hadn't always planned to become lawyers. Zora had wanted to be a poet once. Nova thought she might teach history. But then their father was arrested on trumped-up charges when they were 13. No one fought for him. No one even listened. He took a plea deal. That night, their lives changed. They didn't talk about it much, but it was there, underneath everything. The fuel, the fire. By the time they were 19, they were already certified legal defense researchers. Not lawyers, not yet, but damn close. Working under mentors, volunteering at clinics, and mastering court procedures with surgical precision. When Tasha's case came in, they didn't just take it, they tore it apart. They pulled financial records, traced bank transfers, found receipts the church board didn't even know existed. Zora spent nights sketching timelines in legal pads. Nova interviewed witnesses like a detective with something to prove. They had just enough backing from a non-profit legal aid org to appear in court under supervision. It wasn't enough for Voss to notice them, but it would be. The day of the preliminary hearing, Voss strutted in with a glossy case file and a smirk. Tasha sat between the twins, trembling. Nova placed a hand on her aunt's knee. "We got you," she whispered. The judge entered. The bailiff called the room to order. And just like that, the game began. No one knew the Carter twins yet, but they would. Bradley Voss didn't make mistakes, at least not the kind anyone could prove. He built his career on burying truth under paperwork and weaponizing doubt. He prided himself on sniffing out weakness. But sitting in his office that evening, reviewing the transcripts from the day's hearing, he frowned for the first time in months. "They're kids," he muttered to himself, flipping through the annotated notes his paralegal had made. Where the hell did they learn to argue like that? The transcript didn't lie. The twins had outmaneuvered him, on procedural grounds no less, twice. He tossed the folder aside and poured himself a drink. Scotch, expensive, burned on the way down. He stared out the window of his downtown high-rise as LA flickered alive below. Across the city, in a dim apartment lit by a flickering desk lamp, Zora and Nova reviewed footage on Nova's laptop. They'd secured CCTV from the church office. It hadn't been easy. Nova had sweet-talked the janitor. Zora followed up with a subpoena filed so fast, it surprised even the non-profit supervisor who backed them. "There," Zora said, pointing. "Pause. Rewind 5 seconds." Nova clicked. The video showed the pastor's nephew, Darius, slipping into the bookkeeping room late at night, alone, carrying what looked like a flash drive. Zora sat back, lips tight. "And that's 2 days before the funds disappeared. Time-stamped, unedited, direct evidence," Nova said. "Let's see him wiggle out of this." But they knew it wouldn't be that simple, not with someone like Voss on the other side. He didn't just defend clients. He erased trails, twisted narratives, bullied judges into compliance. "He's going to go after us next," Nova said softly. Zora nodded. "Let him, we'll be ready." The next morning they were. Courtroom 2B was fuller than ever. Someone had tipped the press. A couple of law students sat in the back, whispering. One even-mouthed, "That's them," as the twins entered in matching black suits and braids tied back tight. Voss was already at the table, polishing his glasses like he had all the time in the world. He looked up at them and smiled, almost sympathetically. "I hope your aunt's enjoying all this attention," he said. "It'll be harder for her when this doesn't go your way." Nova tilted her head. "You sound nervous, Mr. Voss." He chuckled. "You're good. I'll give you that. But courtroom charisma isn't the same as credibility." Zora unzipped her briefcase. "Then let's stick to evidence." As the judge entered and proceedings began, the atmosphere shifted. Everyone sensed it. Something unusual was happening. 2 young black women, unflinching, prepared, and laser-focused, were holding their own against one of the most powerful lawyers in the city. They weren't just the defense anymore. They were the threat, and Voss was starting to feel it. By noon, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Zora stood near the evidence screen, clicker in hand. Behind her glowed a still frame from the CCTV footage. Darius, frozen mid-step, eyes darting toward the church office door. "This was taken at 11:42 p.m., Zora said. "Exactly 48 hours before the alleged transfer of $16,000 from the church's account." She clicked again. Another image, the church ledger, opened to a handwritten adjustment note. The note that authorized the transfer wasn't logged through the system. It was written manually, and our client, Tasha Daniels, was not in the building that night. Murmurs rippled through the room. Judge Meadows adjusted her glasses. Voss, arms crossed, tried to look unfazed, but his knuckles whitened. Nova took over seamlessly. She approached the witness stand where the church's finance director fidgeted. "Mr. Collins," she said, calm but firm. You testified that you saw my aunt make irregular entries into the books. Was that your direct observation, or something someone told you? Collins hesitated. Well, Darius mentioned objection. Hearsay, Nova cut in instantly. Sustained, Meadows said, barely letting Voss rise from his chair. Nova smiled. Let's stick to facts then. Did you personally witness Tasha Daniels' access-restricted files? No, not personally. No further questions. She returned to the table. Zora leaned in. We're cracking it. Nova didn't reply. Her eyes scanned the room. That's when she saw it. Darius, sitting 2 rows behind Voss, fiddling nervously with his phone. He looked up, caught her eye, and flinched. Nova's mind raced. He's scared, she whispered to Zora. And he's here. That means he knows we're close. The court recessed for lunch. Outside, the sun beat down and the media circled like flies. Reporters lobbed questions as the twins walked past. Are you really certified defense strategists at 19? Is this about more than just your aunt's case? Do you think the system's stacked against black defendants? Nova stopped, just for a moment. She turned to face the cameras. This isn't about one case, she said. It's about the pattern. When people like our aunt are blamed because they're easy targets, because they're quiet, because they won't fight back. Zora stepped up beside her. Well, we fight back, she said. With facts, with truth, with the law. The footage went viral before the recess ended. Inside the courtroom, Voss sat back down, jaw clenched. His paralegal leaned in. We've got a problem. I know, he muttered. He had underestimated them. From the moment they walked in, treated them like amateurs, assumed the courtroom belonged to him. But the courtroom doesn't care about assumptions. It only listens to the ones who come prepared. And the Carter twins weren't here to play fair. They were here to win. The night before closing arguments, their apartment was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional rustle of paper. Zora was on the floor surrounded by case files. Nova paced with her phone to her ear. Any word from Collins? Nova asked. Zora shook her head. He's scared. Probably got a warning from Voss's office. Nova sighed. He's the key. If we can get him to admit Darius pressured him into making those statements, we can tie the whole thing together. Zora looked up. Or we push Darius himself to fold. Nova gave her a look. You want to cross-examine him? I want to see if he breaks under pressure. Before Nova could respond, there was a knock at the door. They both froze. Zora stood and moved slowly to the peephole. Then she blinked. You're not going to believe this. She opened the door. Darius stood there, sweating, eyes darting, holding a manila envelope. I need to talk, he said quickly. Alone, please. Zora stepped back. Nova stayed where she was, arms crossed. You've got 30 seconds, she said. Darius stepped inside like a man walking into a confession booth. He looked at the twins, then down at the envelope. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I thought they'd just suspend Tasha, you know? Quietly. I didn't know Voss would push for charges. Nova's voice was ice. You lied. You framed her. I deleted emails, yeah, adjusted some entries. I didn't think... He stopped, swallowing hard. I didn't think anyone would check. Zora took a step closer. So why now? Because I saw you two in court, and I realized you're not letting this go. You're going to expose everything. Nova looked at the envelope. What's that? Printouts from the church server. Emails between me and Collins. Proof I altered the ledger. It's all there. He extended the envelope with shaking hands. Zora didn't take it right away. Are you trying to cover yourself? Yeah, he admitted. But also, I'm tired of being scared of people like Voss. Nova finally took it, flipping through the pages. Her eyes widened slightly. Zora, this is it. Darius moved toward the door. I'll testify. Just don't let him ruin more lives. He left without another word. The twins stood in silence. Then Nova whispered, This changes everything. The next morning, the courtroom was electric. Word had gotten out. Darius Carter, the prosecution's implied witness, was now cooperating with the defense. Voss arrived 10 minutes late. He walked in, glanced at the twins, and saw the envelope sitting on their table. He knew, instantly. For the first time, he looked unsure. Zora leaned toward Nova. "Let's finish this." And as the bailiff called the court to order, the Carter twins rose, not just to defend their aunt, but to rewrite the rules of who gets to speak, who gets to win, and who gets to be heard in the halls of justice. Voss sat rigid, hands clenched under the prosecution table, as Darius Carter took the stand. The courtroom was silent, packed beyond capacity. The judge allowed cameras today, and one glance at the gallery confirmed what everyone already knew. This wasn't just a trial anymore, it was a reckoning. Zora approached slowly, every step measured. "State your name for the record," she said. "Darius Emmanuel Carter," he replied, voice tight. "And your relation to the alleged victim in this case?" "She's my aunt." Zora paced once, then stopped. "You previously claimed no knowledge of the transfer that led to the charge against Ms. Tasha Daniels. Is that still your position?" Darius shook his head. "No, I lied." Gasps from the gallery. A reporter dropped their pen. Zora didn't flinch. "Tell the court what you did." "I accessed the church accounting system after hours. I made a manual entry for the transfer. I forged a note in Tasha's handwriting. I deleted backup files." Nova watched from the table, her jaw tense. "And why did you do this?" Zora asked. "Because the board was pressuring me to clean up a mistake I made. I panicked. I thought Tasha wouldn't fight it." "Did anyone help you?" "Not directly, but when I told Mr. Collins, he agreed to back my version of events. And when Voss took the case, he never asked for more details, just said we'd win if I stayed quiet." A beat passed, then Zora said quietly, "Did Ms. Daniels have any knowledge of your actions?" "No, none. She's innocent." Zora nodded. No further questions. Voss stood almost robotically. His cross was short, clipped, lifeless. By the end of it, even the jury looked uncomfortable. Later that afternoon, Nova delivered the closing. She didn't raise her voice, didn't grandstand. She just told the truth. "When people like our aunt are targeted," she said, "it's not just about money. It's about how easy it is to believe the worst about someone who's quiet, black and trusting." She paused, locking eyes with each juror. "But justice isn't about what's easy. It's about what's true." Voss didn't bother with much rebuttal. He knew the case had collapsed. The twins had not only defended their aunt, they had dismantled his entire narrative with cold, irrefutable precision. That night, after court adjourned, Zora and Nova sat on the courthouse steps, too exhausted to speak. People passed by and nodded, some in awe, some in gratitude. Tasha joined them, her eyes red but smiling. She didn't say anything, she just hugged them both tight. In that moment, with the sounds of the city echoing around them, the Carter twins understood something deeper than any legal theory. They weren't just changing their aunt's life. They were showing the world exactly what happens when underestimated voices rise. The jury returned in under 2 hours. Zora sat perfectly still. Nova held Tasha's hand so tightly her own fingers ached. Across the aisle, Voss sat slumped, tie loosened, tapping his pen against the table in short, nervous bursts. "Will the defendant please rise?" Judge Meadows said, her voice steady. Tasha stood, flanked by her nieces, trembling slightly. The clerk read the verdict aloud. "On the count of felony embezzlement, we find the defendant, Tasha Daniels, not guilty." The courtroom exhaled. Tasha broke into quiet sobs, her knees giving just slightly. Nova caught her. Zora closed her eyes for a breath, then opened them to find Voss already gathering his things, refusing to meet her gaze. Outside, a wave of reporters and supporters flooded the courthouse steps. Microphones, cameras, questions flew like hail. "How does it feel to beat one of the biggest names in law at 19? Will you two open your own firm? Are you planning to keep defending community cases?" The twins stood at the top of the steps, the afternoon sun catching the edge of Nova's glasses. Zora leaned toward a microphone. "This win isn't just for our aunt. It's for every person who's ever been silenced because they didn't have the right kind of defense or the right kind of face. Nova added, "We're not done. There are more cases, more families, more people who need to know the system isn't just for the powerful." That quote would be clipped and shared across social media for weeks. Back at their apartment that night, it was quiet again. No notes to review, no motions to file, just leftover takeout and the dull ache of adrenaline leaving the body. Nova scrolled through messages, congratulations from former mentors, classmates, even strangers. Zora looked up from the couch. "You think we're ready?" "For what?" "To make this real. Carter and Carter, defense strategies, consulting. Maybe even representation under a full license once we're certified." Nova was quiet a long moment. Then, "Yeah, I do." They clinked 2 water glasses together in place of champagne. It was what they had. It was enough. Weeks later, a small handwritten sign was taped to the front door of a modest second-story office on Crenshaw Boulevard. Carter and Carter, legal strategy and defense below it. Smaller, justice, not just access. Inside, Zora typed up a new intake form as Nova interviewed a young man arrested after a wrongful traffic stop. Outside the window, the city pulsed, messy, imperfect, full of fight. And somewhere downtown, in a firm far shinier but now shaken, Bradley Voss closed a file stamped dismissed. He wouldn't forget them. No one would. Because the Carter twins weren't just courtroom surprises. They were the future of justice. On their terms.